Well, where do I begin? I don't even know where to start. At the recording of this video, I have about 120 hours in Guild Wars 2 now, over the span of realistically a couple of weeks. I had attempted to get into this game, as I've said before in previous videos, multiple times, and honestly what started as just another attempt, of me thinking, alright, let's try and get into this thing that everyone raves about, has now turned into something completely different. This game has become a game that I genuinely hold a real fondness for, and I'm not afraid to say that. After bouncing off of so many MMOs over the years and covering them on the channel, even checking out newer ones, but inevitably burning out, because there's just something not right about the newer games that come out now, something not ticking the box. I didn't expect Guild Wars 2 to be the one that really stuck with me after multiple attempts in the past. As much as I hate to say it, I really figured that I would just play it for a week or two, see some sights, and just move on, and that really wasn't the case. Instead, here I am, still exploring, still learning, still absolutely hooked on this game, and I think I finally figured out why Guild Wars 2 feels so refreshing compared to pretty much everything else on the market right now. So in this video, I want to talk about the things that make it stand out, the freedom, the storytelling, the combat, the community, all of the above, and why this might be the most player-respecting MMO that I've personally ever played, or at least I have done in recent times. Right off the bat, Guild Wars 2 breaks one of the biggest MMO problems, one of the biggest issues you find playing these games, and that is the monthly subscription. You buy the game once and that is it. There is no ticking clock. There's no feeling of, well, I better log in and get my money's worth. No guilt if life just gets busy around you and you have to do other things. That alone, to me, makes the whole experience feel very different. It's like the game says, play when you want, not because you have to. Actually enjoy the time that you want to put into the game. And that attitude runs through everything, to be honest. There's no pressure to keep up. There's no feeling that you're falling behind. I honestly believe that if I logged out of Guild Wars 2 now and came back in a year's time, my gear would still be relevant and I would just be able to jump straight back in where I left off. It feels like you can just breathe. You can explore, craft, PvP, or just relax in the city. It's your pace and your choice. It really is honestly refreshing in a genre that's so often obsessed with keeping you on the grind forever, on that conveyor belt doing the same old thing. And whilst, don't get me wrong, Guild Wars 2 definitely has a grind, the grind, at least to my extent, feels meaningful. It doesn't feel like you're chasing after something that's going to be irrelevant when the next patch hits. Then, of course, there's the story, which started off fairly weak, but has really grown on me, if I'm honest. When you start a new character, you don't just pick a class, you pick a background. You kind of got this whole overarching story of just your character on its own. Each race has its own culture, their own struggles, their own way of seeing the world, I guess. Being a Norn feels completely different from playing a Sylvari or a Char, which I've really come to love my Char a lot. And the personal story actually reflects that. The choices you make, your origins, your allies, your philosophy, they all shape how you adventure and how your adventure begins. It is subtle, but it makes you feel like someone in the world, not just a nameless chosen one. And as the story actually evolves through expansions and through living world chapters, in my opinion, it just gets better. Now, of course, being honest, the story didn't blow me away at first. It was good, but, I wasn't expecting much coming from games like Final Fantasy XIV, which you guys are going to get bored of me referencing that in these videos. But I did hit a bit of a turning point in the story in terms of my interest peaking, and that was when Scarlet Briar was introduced, Scarlet Briar's arc, and it just kind of clicked for me. Now, of course, this isn't going to be everyone's favourite villain, it's probably not even going to be mine, but what Scarlet Briar did for me was kind of flick a bit of a switch to say, okay, there is something here. The developers are definitely trying to do something, and what that means is that down the road, this is definitely going to get better and better. Now, in my personal opinion, I actually thought Scarlet had a little bit of depth to her, to be fair. She was annoying in parts, but really, she was quite a good villain. She was really brilliantly minded, but kind of turned unstable, and, her actions would go on to reshape the world, and her discoveries were actually quite chaotic and tragic, and everything she does really has a meaning the more you kind of uncover the full picture. This storyline then kind of ties into what I'm now discovering through my playthrough now, that ties into Mordramoth, which is the Thorn Dragon, and suddenly everything just starts connecting piece by piece. The story threads really come together in a way that feels earned, and actually, I never had the Living World Season 2 right off the bat. I actually had to pay for it, and, I feel like in a lot of these MMOs, people tend to min-max what content should I get, what offers this, and I really would urge anyone to just sit down and just unlock the story as it comes, because as much as the rewards probably aren't going to be super relevant and super strong compared to the more modern stuff, the story ties that you get going from one expansion to the other are absolutely worth it. I couldn't think of anything worse than entering a new expansion, not having a clue what had happened in the past or how it connects. I really enjoy that you realise that all of the things that you've seen thus far, all the hints, they were leading somewhere big, or at least bigger than what you've experienced. I personally really enjoy MMO stories that actually reward you for paying attention. And, let's be honest, MMO stories, they're not always the strongest. That's not really the biggest accolade of the genre, but I really do appreciate it when they are implemented really well. Something I didn't expect to love so much is actually how the NPCs talk to each other. They don't just stand around or stand still waiting for you to click on them for the most part. They actually exist. In story missions, your companions chat, they argue, they joke, they react as you kind of play. You're not being dragged into endless cutscenes, which is probably the biggest thing for me. You're kind of in the moment with them as it all plays out. At least to me, this makes everything feel grounded and real. The characters have personalities, relationships, and dynamics that play out naturally instead of through static text boxes all the time. Now, honestly, this is such a simple thing, but it really does add so much immersion. Speaking of immersion, there is the world itself. Tyria honestly feels alive. If you walk through any city, you'll hear people talking, merchants shouting deals, guards gossiping, kids playing. There's this one area, I don't remember for the life of me what it's called, but it's an Asuran area. And you've got two NPCs talking to each other about golems that might have gone wild, and how one of them's concerned that it could bring the end of the world or like wipe out a race, and the other one's like, don't be silly, there's protocols in place for that. And they're just having this interaction which felt really real, and it's just really, really cool to listen to. Some of the NPCs you're with through the storyline will hiccup and some will sneeze, and just little normal human interactions, which just adds that level of flavor to it. I like how NPCs aren't just background props for the most part. They have routines, conversations. They feel like they have lives to some extent without sounding dramatic. It's such a small detail, but it gives the world real texture and grit. No one really feels like a statue. To further complement this, instead of filling your map with exclamation marks for quests, the game uses dynamic events, renown hearts, and even the achievement guide to kind of guide your exploration and give you a form of questing. As much as it's tried and tested in other MMOs, I've got to be honest that now that I've experienced the way that Guild Wars 2 approaches quests, I kind of am tired of the whole, here's a quest hub, speak to these 5 people, go and kill 10 boars and come back. For me, the real beauty is that you might just be on your way to somewhere else entirely when suddenly a village gets attacked or a caravan needs defending, and then all of a sudden you're part of something, you're watching something unfold. It's organic. It makes exploration really exciting. In reality, to me, one of the bigger strengths of Guild Wars 2 was initially a weakness to me, and that's the fact that there isn't really much of a checklist outside of the main story telling you exactly what to do right off the rip. You just exist in the world and stuff happens. Now, as you play more, you start to understand that you can check the achievement log and kind of get a rough idea as to what you're aiming for from there, but right off the rip, you've got no clue. And that's the beauty. You just help farmers with their crops, you clear bandit camps, you escort travelers, and it all feeds into the story of that zone. Dynamic events often chain together and actually change the world around you, from clearing barricades that were there that you couldn't progress through to unlocking dialogue with certain NPCs. If you complete one, you might trigger the next somewhere else, fail it, and the area might fall under enemy control until players take it back. And while you're doing all of that, you're naturally progressing achievements and collections in the background. You're actually just rewarded for exploring. You're not ticking off a quest log. It's really a brilliant game design. But none of this means anything unless I mention world versus world. Oh my god, this mode hooked me. To those of you that aren't initiated with Guild Wars 2, imagine entire servers going to war across massive maps, building siege engines, capturing keeps, battling over towers and supply lines. It's pure chaos, and it's the best kind of chaos. In fact, the first night I played it, I ended up staying up till 3 AM just grinding out resources, taking over keeps, killing lords, taking territory, and just reaping the rewards that this game mode gives you. And honestly, the big, large-scale engagements with multiple players, I think the biggest I've had which I didn't think I actually recorded, but the biggest I've had is like 40 to 50 people all in one fight, which is just chaos. I have never seen anything like it, but my God, was it brilliant. There's just something so exhilarating about following your commander and moving as a pack and buffing each other and healing each other and just taking down certain defenses, certain enemies that are on top of the fort towers. It's just really, really cool. I also really love the fact that it kind of ties into PvE in many ways, because a lot of the currencies, a lot of the rewards that you get from World versus World, you can kind of use in most parts of the game. It's all connected. Nothing feels like wasted effort. You don't feel like you're at a detriment because you're doing something else. Now, if we talk about the horizontal progression for a second, at first I really wasn't sure about it. Coming from games where every patch resets your gear, it felt weird to me that the best stats in Guild Wars 2 are, well, the same to some extent. But the longer I have played, the more I've come to really appreciate it, because without that constant gear treadmill, you can finally just play how you want to play. You're not forced into dailies or endless raids just to stay relevant. You can instead chase legendary gear, not just for stats, but also the style, the prestige, or just because it looks cool, not because the game demands that you do that. This freedom has honestly changed how I will look at other MMOs in the future. Guild Wars 2 gives me the freedom to do what I want when I want, and that's something that most games just don't give you the option to do. Now, I really can't talk about Guild Wars 2 without mentioning the community. These players, honestly, are some of the most helpful people I've ever met online, period, even outside of the gaming space. From my very first World versus World matches, people were just explaining the tactics, marking targets, helping me understand what's going on, where to be, who to follow, where to teleport to, and kind of the lay of the land. Even when I first joined my very first PvE dungeon or fractals, people were patient, they gave advice, they taught me instead of just flaming me, they kind of gave me a bit of an insight into certain mechanics and what rewards I can expect. Out in the open world, when you pass someone by, people compliment you on the way your character looks, people ask how your day is. I've got people that I've added on Discord just through meeting them in the game. It's such a rare vibe, but there's this sense of, kind of this shared sense of like, we're all in this together. It really does feel like a world, without sounding silly. To me, at least, it really enhances the whole experience. It feels like a world where people want you to enjoy it. And for me, enjoyment really, really comes in with the combat of Guild Wars 2. It is so much better than I expected it to be, at least from a tab target MMO, or kind of like a dynamic tab target MMO. It is incredible. You're constantly dodging out of AoEs and attacks. You're timing your skills, comboing abilities, and reacting just to the flow of battle. There doesn't feel like there's really any standing still, spamming a rotation. You're actually engaged with the combat. Each class feels really distinct too. A Guardian plays nothing like a Thief, and a Necromancer nothing like a Ranger. And then, of course, there's my boy, the Engineer, my personal favourite so far, my Char Engineer, Salem Blastborn. Between gadgets, turrets, and explosives, it feels like organised chaos, and in the best way possible. Every fight that I get into feels alive, the guns feel amazing, throwing the grenades, getting the mortar out, and just learning different parts of the rotation, it just feels really cool. And I've not even got to the elite spec on this character yet, because I didn't really want to rush it. To me at least, Guild Wars 2 really has that perfect balance of action and strategy that keeps combat feeling fresh, even after, the hours that I've put into the game so far. And yeah, okay, you could argue that in some conflicts, when there's a lot of people, you can't really see much on the screen, but I would argue that most MMOs kind of fall that way. Look at Final Fantasy XIV, look at WoW, for example. Even without the add-ons, there's chaos on the screen. That's just what happens when you get a lot of people in one area. But I really do like the way that Guild Wars 2 does it. So as someone who fully intended to kind of play this but not really stick around, well, I can honestly say I get it now. I really do. Guild Wars 2 isn't trying to trap you with subscriptions or grind loops. It just wants you to just play. It respects your time, your curiosity, and more importantly, your pace. Whether I'm exploring a quiet forest, whether I'm storming a keep at 3 AM in World versus World, or just sitting in Lion's Arch listening to the chatter of NPCs, it feels like a world that lives and breathes even when I log off, and that is really rare. Guild Wars 2 reminds me of why I fell in love with MMOs in the first place all of those years ago. It's not necessarily for the grind or for the gear, but it's for the stories, the people, those unscripted moments that make you go, yeah, do you know what? This world really is special. So if you've been on the fence about giving Guild Wars 2 a shot, just do it. There's no sub, no pressure. just adventure. And yeah, a slight side note, if you happen to see an engineer just running around in World versus World at 3 in the morning, yeah, that's probably me. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. As always, I just want to close this video out saying a huge thank you to anyone who supports me on Patreon. Trust me, it does not go unnoticed, and I really, really do appreciate it. Link is down below if you are curious. Thank you. Bye.